There is no excellence where there is equality. For every diversity hire, there is a diversity fire. It is not the similarities that make us the same. It is the differences that make us different. The truth is hate to those who hate the truth. Atonement cannot be made for a grievance never committed. Hollywood isn't history. In a world of collectivism, individualism is suicide. There is no Western civilization without Western kind.
Would you like to network with white positive people in your area to rid your community of anti-whiteism, to help ensure the well-being of Western kind? If so, please consider joining or creating a Go Free Club. Go Free or Going Free clubs are dedicated to teaching the practice of going free of the anti-white meme pathogens, preventing Western kind from protecting themselves from anti-whiteism. By forming clubs, white positive members of a community can help each other to overcome the anti-white propaganda they have been infected with by utilizing the teachings of Jason Köhne's book, Go Free. Go Free clubs have been forming throughout Western civilization since October 2021. If you are interested in joining a club, simply reach out to the founder by email, and they will begin the vetting process to ensure you are white positive and willing to positively contribute to the club. You do not need to provide any identifying information to begin the vetting process, but you will need to meet with a club representative in person before joining an in-person meeting. In addition to joining an existing club, please consider forming your own if you live in an area currently lacking a club. Current clubs may be dedicated to entire countries or states, but as membership grows, clubs can begin to form at the city and town level. Mr. V, the founder of the first Go Free Club, is serving as the leader of the other Go Free Club founders. He will walk you through the process of forming your own club. Please reach out to him at gofreeclub@protonmail.com. Please help us to ensure the well-being of Western kind and Western civilization. Thank you.
And it looks like we are rolling in. At least I see myself. I hope you all are able to see me, whoever is here. Let me know if you can hear me okay. Let me know if you can hear the papers. We're going to go ahead and get started just about right away. Entropy is up if you have a financial gift, 15% cost to you. Odyssey, same as 15% as Entropy, cost to you. And Cash App, of course, over to my right, no cost to you. It is up and running. And we are, I believe, right between Yiz and the great Fornull, who will be beginning at the top of next hour. So we are going to be quick. And depending on how well we do in this review, I think we'll probably be able to get enough of the meat of it, enough of the substance. But depending on how we do, we might make it a part one. But I think we'll get it finished, don't you? Okay. Wow, the shirt is very purple on D Live. And as a consequence, the camera is much brighter on me there, it looks like. Got to balance these things. What I'm seeing here, it doesn't look like that at all. So interesting. But we'll leave it there, and we will roll right now. Let's bring up Hake and this TJump, classical liberal, which really typically means anti-white these days. Nobody really calls themselves that unless they are anti-white and they're trying to conceal it under another moniker. It's one of the things that anti-whites are wont to do. And so if you were watching Yiz, is she done, I guess? First question I'll ask. And then we will jump over here. There we go. Let's go ahead and hear. Listen to the show. Let me know how the sound is for you all.
Yes. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Have a great day.
You as well.
All right.
All right.
All right.
So, guys, I have TJump with me for the first time on the Hake.
I think Hake was saying T-Junk as well, don't you? It sounded like T-Junk. I mean, maybe he's saying jump, but it's jump. Yeah. Okay, let's go.
Report. It's not the first time I've talked with him. TJump is on Twitter.
Oh, I don't know.
He
looks like he's making a
an
P with his
atheist
mouth.
philosopher who runs a YouTube channel. TJump, all one word. TJump, debating professors and others on whether God exists. I appeared on his stream.
Okay, so
January.
this guy's an atheist, as well as calling himself a classical liberal. So we'll be looking out for anti-whiteism. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but I saw the image of this guy, and he looks like he's probably anti-white. But let's roll.
25th, TJump debates Hake on evidence of.
And we're fans of Hake, of course. So we know that Hake is going to be a gracious host, I'm sure. It's not a debate, but a conversation. Debate-ish conversation.
God. And prior to that, I debated TJump and others in panel discussions in person.
Okay, well then maybe it is a debate. I'm sorry.
Which was cool. Modern Day Debate Convention in Dallas. Hake debated this transgender madness and leftism and the CRT stuff. And TJump is kind of liberal, but kind of reasonable sometimes. And used to be a Christian, now he's an atheist.
Used to be a Christian, now he's atheist. I think we've heard enough. Oh, no, okay,
man.
Here we go.
Hey, great to be back on. You totally forgot about the time.
Yeah, look at this
we went
guy.
to go get like Asian pho.
Yeah, that's right. We had pho over there in Dallas. That was cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, Foster says
Been
all is
well.
coming in loud and clear.
So,
I appreciate it.
I saw you on Modern Day Debate like last week or so, debating against this Mango Tea young guy who's been super chatting whenever I debate on Modern Day Debate.
Look at it.
Is racism real?
Is
And
he
you
drooling?
said Nazis were real. Racism is real. And did it
Solid argument.
did it go
Is T-Junk drooling?
further than that? Because I didn't watch the whole thing. I saw
No,
that.
Mango is not the most comprehensive debater. He doesn't really go much deeper than the very surface level. So
Yeah.
we hoping to get into it a little more in detail with you.
So in your mind,
He did one of those, just off the top, I have to point out something that annoyed me right away was he made this like ugly face when he heard something he didn't like. And to do that with adults is juvenile as all hell, and it's condescending, and that's a typical behavior of an anti-white who feels themselves superior, and they're going to force you to listen to their absolute insufferable cant. So let's see if that is what we're facing.
racism exists. Has it always existed, and will it always exist?
No. So at one point, humans didn't exist, so there was no racism.
Oh, what an asinine thing to say. Yeah, condescending. I'm absolutely right so far. We'll hear what he has to say, though.
Okay.
And at one point, there will probably
Okay. Racism didn't exist because there were no people. Racism is an anti-white concept, and those using it are anti-white.
be no humans, and there will be no racism. I think that at some points we will evolve to the point where we're like modifying humans with technology, and then racism isn't going to be a thing because it's going to be technologism, something where different technologies are biased based on what technology you have, but it's definitely not going to be like what it is today.
Yeah.
So he just placed our love for our people, which of course he's going to call evil, and use this concept, anti-white concept of racism. He just said that it's something that you evolve away from. Of course, evolve both means to become more complex or simpler organism. The devolve is really not a legitimate term. But nonetheless, when people talk about evolve, they're talking about improving, going further than you have before. And so what he's saying is your views, if you care about Western kind, are antiquated. And we're going to evolve away from that.
And what is it today? What's your description of what it is today?
Yeah, so racism is a bunch of generalizations made by in-group and out-group biases that are a tendency due to human evolution. And so people have a preference for specific physical traits, usually.
Just point out really quickly, he just used the word preference as a synonym or associate definitional word for racism.
Similar to their own, and associate negative traits to things, people who have different physical features than their own.
Okay, so he finished his thought there. Trying to do this a little differently. I want to allow the person to give their whole thought, then maybe skip back and then add my thoughts, my observations. So what he is saying here, first of all, what is racism? It is anything that is not anti-white enough. Anyone who is not anti-white enough. That's how it's applied in the real world. And now what he's doing here, it's interesting. Look at his face right here. You can learn a lot about human behavior by observing that behavior. And this is the face that someone makes, this TJump I'm talking about here. This is the face that someone makes when they don't believe what they just told you and they hope that you are going to buy it. You can observe this. I mean, there's a whole science behind this, and maybe I know quite a bit about it, or maybe I don't. Who knows? But this is the face of, are you buying what I just told? Are you buying what I just said? When you're with a salesman and he's trying to, or she's trying to sell you a bill of goods, something that is fraudulent, something that is not what it actually is. When you're with a mountebank, this is the kind of face, unless they're very well trained and successful, this is the kind of face that they'll make after they make the claim that they know is bogus. He knows right here, my bet is that he knows in application that racism means he's not going to be able to articulate it as brilliantly as us, which is it's not anti-white enough, but he nonetheless knows that when he applies it and when the general society applies it, when governments, businesses, etc. apply it, it's always white people. But he just gave you this definition that can be applied to anyone. He also used preference. So having a preference is racist, according to him. And of course, racist for anti-whites is a synonym of evil. So if you're a white woman and you have a preference for white men, well, then Junk here TJump would consider you evil. White man, a preference for white women, well, consider you evil. You have a preference for who you'd like to have lunch with, or who. Look at the lunchrooms of workplaces and universities and see what people are doing. TJump would say that that's all evil, using the synonym, the anti-white concept of racist. Promethean Promulgation says the title isn't updating on Twitter Restream. You mean this isn't properly playing on Twitter? I'll have to, it looks like it is working properly, but let me know. Thank you for that. Let's roll.
Does it happen frequently that people internalize racism against their own? Because
looks like he has an underbite too, TJump. Also looks like he's maybe growing out of that easy chair. I think he's been sitting in that easy chair a bit too long. It looks like it's part of him. And he's drooling out of the left side of his mouth.
a lot of blacks think that they have internalized racism.
But I'm sure he's a nice fellow.
I don't even know what internalized racism means.
So that means that as racism against their own, because a lot of blacks think that they have internalized racism.
I don't even know what internalized racism means.
So that means that they hate themselves because they've been brainwashed by white culture.
Very rarely. It's rarely the case that you hate yourself. Luckily for human biology, our brains have evolved to like ourselves the vast majority of the time. There's certain features we hate about ourselves, like if we're overweight, I hate that about myself, and other things that I can't control. Like I really don't like having to eat all the time. It's kind of a pain.
He doesn't like having to eat all the time. Stop it. You're fat. I mean, you just said You just said you hate about yourself that you are overweight. Sitting in that easy chair so long that you are now connected to it and eating all the time is a problem. If you hate eating all the time, well, then stop. Excuse me. But I think it's completely ridiculous to claim that people don't hate themselves. There are a lot of people, especially today, if you're white, you hate yourself. And it's to various degrees. So this is I believe, a bogus, nonsensical assertion.
Man, is racism bad?
I don't think opinions are bad. So I don't think any opinion or thought you have, even if you completely hate another race with every ounce of your opinionated being, as long as you don't act on it, I wouldn't say it's immoral. I'd say it's only immoral if you act on those feelings to infringe on some other group or some other individual's rights to live. And so I wouldn't say the opinion is wrong. I'd say...
Okay, I'd like to know what he means by infringing on another person or group's right to live. Right to live. Like, do they have a right to neighborhoods built by white people? Do they have a right to countries built by white people? Do they have a right to be between a white woman's legs? I'd like to know what he means by that, because there it just seems anodyne.
The way people act on the opinion is wrong.
Do you think that this very subtle, hard to detect, but then when you see the stats, it bears out, supposedly, according to the liberals, systemic racism is real, where the juries are sentencing the blacks to longer sentences for the so-called same crimes as the whites? Do you think that's real and racist and wrong?
Well, so systemic racism is super arbitrary. Like, it can mean literally anything depending on who you talk to. So I've talked to a few people. I talked to Aaron a little while ago.
That's true.
Said systemic racism essentially is anything that a system will produce different outcomes for people of different races, whether or not it's intentional or not. And I think that's just dumb. I think that kind of definition is completely ridiculous. That just means reality is racist, essentially.
Right.
So I think if you define systemic racism as there are certain policies that specifically target a particular group intentionally, then yeah, that definitely existed. That existed all throughout time. We know there are policies like the Jim Crow laws.
I was just going to say, is he now going to cite all of the instances of non-white people discriminating against white people? It's all around us right this very moment. It's in our lives, in every one of our lives. And yet he wants to go backward in time to a period when white people allowed non-white people to participate in our society, instead of, in this case, just saying, no, sorry, you've got to go back, or you're going to send you to where your grandparents were from. We're going to send you right back. Instead of doing that, they said you could stay, and we're going to limit participation initially. White people were not ready to just turn over towns and cities and et cetera that we had built, that we had constructed. Hake, TJump goes to that instead of what's happening the very second he was talking to our champion Hake right here. And it is not a debate. Hake is just asking him questions, looks like.
Specifically targeted black people intentionally, and the writers literally said they targeted black people. So
that you mean they limited, right?
Yes, there are definitely systemic racist laws, as long as you define systemic racism in a coherent way, where it literally means a law specifically targeting a race.
Were those
okay? So we already have enough evidence that I'm right about this guy, that he's anti-white.
Understandable? Were those ever justified, given that we were a white country and trying to look out for our own?
I don't think so. I think that...
Of course he doesn't think so, because he's an anti-white lazy boy chair. That's what this guy is, an anti-white lazy boy chair with a lisp, an underbite, and a drooling problem. Get him a bib.
For them to be justified, there'd have to be some kind of like scientific evidential basis that they'd have a positive outcome, rather than just being...
No. For them to be justified, they had scientific based outcome. Hold on.
That for them to be justified, there'd have to be some kind of like scientific evidential basis that they'd have a positive outcome, rather than just being reactionary. I don't like this, therefore we're going to ban it. Since I think so, I think that for them to be justified, there'd have to be some kind of like scientific evidential.
Well, this guy is supposed to be, I was told about this TJump, supposed to be some kind of a big thinker. And he can't handle the question of what is or what is not justified. Who decides what's justified? Does a God decide what's justified? Do people decide what's justified? Does the system of people create decide what's justified? Of course, it is justified to say that it's justifiable to say that you have built. It's about perspective, and since he's anti-white, his perspective is that white people are a problem. White people are evil, and so he's looking for an excuse to come to that conclusion. What a big thinker! The world is absolutely rife with what stupid people think smart is. And that's how people like TJump get selected as this is a bright guy. Rather than people who actually have, because the reality is that people who actually have a nosebleed IQ can't even be understood by the average midwit.
Basis that they'd have a positive outcome rather than just being reactionary.
It did have a positive outcome. It did have a positive outcome because white people built Western civilization, and then white people said you can participate, but we're going to limit the participation.
I don't like this, therefore we're going to ban it. Since all of the scientific evidence showed that it was a counterproductive law that didn't actually help society, it
on the basis of what?
Justified. It was more just an intuitive.
What do you mean it didn't help society?
We don't like. It showed that it was a counterproductive law that didn't actually help society. It never was justified. It was more just an intuitive.
By what metric did it not help society? White people did not need to allow anybody else in. They certainly did not need to allow individuals who had been in bondage to them to participate as equal members of their society.
Intuitive feeling that we don't like this group of people, so we're going to block them from our communities. And so I don't think.
Okay, so I wonder if he would make the exact same response about white or non-white people, say black people in Africa, who didn't like and wanted to block white people showing up and participating in their countries. Surely there were black people who said, no, this is our tribe, this is our land, we don't want them here. So is TJump going to come in and say what he is saying now about the blacks? No.
In any of those cases where there were systemic racist laws that they were.
What do you mean black people that you won't allow the white race in to just do whatever they want in your country? What do you mean?
And ever justified in that way. There are some that are called systemic racism that aren't. So like laws where there's increased policing, where there's increased violence, like that's not systemic racism, that's just policing. Like if we were to abolish all police today and we're going to reestablish them, we'd probably put people that are called systemic racism that aren't. So like laws where there's increased policing, where there's increased violence, like that's not systemic racism, that's just policing. Like if we were to abolish all police today and we're going to reestablish.
I totally agree with that. Where there's increased police, I mean, you should know, if you don't know this already, if you go someplace and there are a lot of police, it's not safe. It's part of the white woman's disease. You often hear, they'll say, I'll ask women over the years, is it safe there? Oh yeah, there are police everywhere. No, honey, that means it's very dangerous.
Establish them. We'd
Not
probably
all
put
white
the
women,
most
though.
police where the most crime is, and so it'd look about the same. And you wouldn't call that systemic racism, that'd just be common policing.
Is it true that you want to become president of the United States someday?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Man, you're talking.
Could you just imagine? They'd have to wheel him out on that lazy boy.
To me, that's a risk.
Making my running mate, you can be my VP Hake.
Nice. I'll be your Mike Pence. But you said it seems like you're kind of caricaturing the South and maybe even the Nazis when you say that they were
Take it to him, Hake.
racist or whatever. because they simply arbitrarily, reactionarily don't like these people. But they've had problems, the diversity, as you know. I know that you support anti-discrimination laws from other talks that we've had, and you think that advances society and makes a benefit for all generally, for the most part. But this diversity thing has brought about problems and a benefit, and you think that support anti-discrimination laws from other talks that we've had, and you think that advances society and makes a benefit for all generally, for the most part.
And I would ask at that point, does TJump, when he's talking about anti-discrimination laws, is he talking about discrimination within the white race, or is it always a multiracial environment where these laws undermine white well-being in Western civilization?
But this diversity thing has brought about problems, and anti-discrimination laws, as you may know, has fed, frivolous anti-discrimination lawsuits, or when people are different and they have a conflict. It's bad enough when you have a conflict with your own family members, but then you have a conflict with a black and you're a white. It just feeds the suspicions of each other. Oh, it's just he's treating me this way because I'm white or because I'm black, when it has nothing to do with that. It's just a disagreement.
And that disagreement, those problems are multiplied millions fold by the anti-white narrative that we're forced to live under, which tells everyone, and that means also non-white people, that the white race is incessantly taking steps to undermine non-white people for the benefit of all white people, which could not be further from the truth. The white race is the least likely to do that, as all white people know, because we suffer the reality
so often. So it just breeds even more unnecessary conflict between people.
But those seem to be like small things, like the fact that I totally agree that there are
small things,
ridiculous claims of racism and discrimination that are accused of lots of people. But the benefits of anti-discrimination laws, of giving everyone of every race an opportunity to succeed and get education, and
we do that. Not just equal opportunity, preferential treatment in all of these areas. Enshrined in law, enshrined in code, enshrined.
Become scientists.
Become scientists
is such a huge.
So you have to have non-white scientists? I didn't follow that.
Benefit to the economy. We can just look at economic policies where they do this, and the economic growth. Huge benefit to the economy. We can just look at economic policies where they do this, and the economic growth is significantly higher, like in the billions.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is going to be one of these guys who worships lucre. So it's all going to be about money, filthy, and the economy. And he's making the argument now that all that really matters is economy, and if it benefits the economy, non-white people being in, I guess what he's arguing for is preferential treatment, not just equal opportunity, because has not existed for all totality of our lives, that somehow it makes more money, and therefore that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what's happening to white people in the process.
Amount of allowing, for example, women in the workforce, which I don't think you have a very interesting opinion on.
Right.
That has grown the economy so massively. Any tiny little bad side effects where people are accused of sexism or whatever are small by comparison. So if I
my God, no, whole lives and families are ruined by these anti-white changes to the workforce and growing the economy. These sort of like they get down. This guy wouldn't be able to do it because he's attached to a lazy boy. But others, they get down, they put their ass in the air for the economy. Like, he did say he was an atheist. Okay, now this makes more sense. So human beings are going to worship something. And if they're not worshiping a god or gods, they're going to end up worshiping an ideology. They're going to end up worshiping, and it sounds like in his case, filthy lucre, the economy. That's what matters for TJump, is the god economy. And as long as the god economy is happy, then T-Junk is, it doesn't matter what's happening to people's lives of all races. I mean, men's lives of all races across the West have been obliterated by taking the women out of the household and putting them into the workforce. T-Junk is very happy that that has made the people at the very top, the centimillionaires, the billionaires, and et cetera, made them very wealthy. But what has it done for the average family? And for us, the average white family? It's impoverished us. There was a very brief period where the wife went off to work while the husband was working, and they brought in more money than they would have otherwise brought in. But that has long since been in the rearview mirror. We are well into an environment where both people have now to work, because by doubling the workforce, which is what happened when you allow women to go into the workforce, this guy's supposed to be a brainiac. My God, people are so dumb. People are so dumb to call this guy bright. It's just sickening. This guy doesn't even understand the simplest, even though he worships lucre, the economy, even though he worships lucre, he doesn't understand some of the most basic principles of supply and demand. When you increase supply by 50%, which is what you did when you brought women into the workforce, not even talking about what happened to the family, you reduce salaries. And that is exactly what has happened. And we could go on. I don't have enough time because it's just past the bottom of the hour. If you're not a subscriber to Yiz the Eunuch, I posted her show on all of my platforms. Get over to her channel, follow her on her channel. And we have Fornold coming up in just about 25 minutes, the top of the hour. Make sure you're there and you follow him as well. Subscribe to him as well. So there isn't enough time to talk about the ramifications for white men who are already enduring a hailstorm. Not just maelstrom. We're talking about hell of attacks, of victimization. And on top of that, now they have their women out in the workforce. We have infidelity going through the roof as a consequence of that taking place. These guys are not able to get the jobs that they would have been able to get to support a family. They can't get hardly any job at all. T-Junk doesn't care about that. T-Junk doesn't care if you're a white man and you can't get a job, or you can only get a job worth half what you're worth and what you've been trained for, because all he's concerned about is God economy happy? And if God economy is happy, I think the rest of us would be very happy with an environment where one partner could go to work. You could have a home. You could have a couple vacations a year. You could have 2 cars in the driveway. We would be far happier with that. And being able to afford children, we'd be far happier with that than the world that T-Junk creates.
To be president, for example, and I had to decide, should we have a country that allows equal opportunity for all races and sexes? I'm gonna be like, yes, we should go for this, because even though it may lead to some kind of spurious lawsuits, the amount of economic benefit that it provides.
Even though millions of lives are ruined by this, millions of families, and many of those millions and millions of lives that are ruined are the children who get caught in the middle of spurious lawsuits and etc. But economy is happy. And so get down and begin, economy. That's all that matters for T-Junk. And you know what? It wouldn't be all that mattered for him if he were in a non-white country, right? If he were in a country that was all non-white, he'd be talking about the people, their rights, their feelings even. How do they feel about this?
Is so overwhelmingly positive that the tiny amount of bad things is like, so what?
The
So what?
lawsuits and things are, to me, they're kind of just the tip of the iceberg, because there's a lot of hatred and discord that naturally occurs among
Hake.
human beings. And, there's a lot of crime.
This T-Junk is like laughing
kind of
at that.
Grows and, what I call moral degradation that grows among communities. And this diversity thing, have you noticed that there is this dominant cultural attack upon whites in our country and other countries?
Well said, Hake.
Well, definitely some groups do attack white and Western culture a lot. That's a thing, but it's not a majority position. It's a loud minority, a bunch of random cranky.
It's every single one of our lives as white people have been adversely affected by anti-whiteism. Every single one of our lives. To deny that that is happening is proof positive that you are anti-white. You want to deny our victimization, and that is disgusting. You want to minimize it. You're filthy anti-white. No wonder he's become part of that lazy boy.
Karens on Twitter mostly.
We'll just call him lazy boy from now on.
How society is actually run.
What did he say?
Like if we're loud minority, a bunch of random cranky Karens on Twitter mostly. But
oh my God. So he just used an anti-white slur, Karen, to represent a minimized depiction of the people who attack Western kind and Western civilization on Instagram, is what he said. That is absolutely a disgusting, a repulsive thing. To turn a blind eye to the victimization of white children who are taught every single day that their people are evil and therefore they carry within them the seed of evil. And the only way they can be healthy and happy and moral is to wage war on their own kind and therefore what they quintessentially are. That's what this lazy boy is trying to say to you. Nothing big there. Just a bunch of not a bunch of anti-whites, not a bunch of name any of these anti-white groups, including non-white anti-white groups. No, not going to name them. It's a bunch of Karens. It's a bunch of white people that are responsible for this, just on Instagram, though.
Like if we're looking at how society is actually run, the vast majority.
You don't see Joe Biden and the Democrat Party and many of the rhinos are participating in this. It's not just Karens on Twitter.
So it seems to me that the vast majority.
Yeah, it's a great point, Hake. I mean, Biden got out there and he said the purpose of his presidency, the greatest threat to the existence of the United States, are white people who are not anti-white enough. And of course, they give them the name a white supremacist. So if you're white and you're not anti-white enough, you're white supremacist, you're a Nazi, you're a neo-Nazi, you're all these things. This is what anti-whites call you. So he's waging war on white people who are not anti-white enough in the United States today. That's no big deal. This lazy boy TJump is just brushing that off.
Politicians do absolutely nothing when it comes to policies. All they do is they talk. So they say things to appease their base, both on the Republican and Democratic side, but they do literally nothing to make any positive change whatsoever. So
how do you like that argument in response to Hake's point that, okay, we have politicians that are saying wage war on the white race. It's all the white race, white people who aren't anti-white enough. And they say it in so many words. I mean, they don't say it that clearly. We're saying it for them. And this is in my opinion. Of course, you wait for CNN to give you the facts. But he then says in response to politicians saying these things, well, politicians, they really don't do anything. They really don't. And then he goes off into what's like a semi-legitimate point to try to walk away from it that, well, they make a bunch of promises to their particular communities and then they don't. No, guaranteed. If this guy was asked about politicians, say one like me, say I became a politician and I said, we're going to serve white well-being. We're going to put an end to anti-whiteism. All good people of all races, all immutable characteristics are going to come together to put an end to this because it is anti-whiteism destroying the West and what we all care and love. This guy would not be saying, well, politicians, they just say things. No, he would be talking about how evil I am. Rest assured. Imagine him talking about Trump.
So
right.
When Biden says all these things, like, can you name any policies he's actually implemented that
yes, we've read the bills
trying to redistribute the wealth?
Yes, redistribute. We have read the bills that they're making law. They're getting ready to take away more of our right to self-defense. What do you mean? Typical of an anti-white.
From the white majority.
He is definitely letting people in at the border. Like he's getting, in my opinion, this Title 42 thing, that's a public health order, allowing us to turn away migrants at the border. I think we should be allowed to turn away migrants at the border with or without any health concern.
Yeah, but do you think that is an attempt to take away power from the white majority? Because to me, that's just, oh, here's a bunch of more
course it
workers
is.
to do all of the cheap jobs that white people don't want to do.
Oh, here we go. Back to the MP. Oh, here a bunch of workers to do the jobs white people don't want to do. I can't believe that any anti-white continues to use this argument. It is so hackneyed at this point, and it is so obviously a lie, this MP, this mean pathogen. They're taking all the jobs. We have brand new Americans, whether they were uninvited intruders that were unarmed, or whether they are just border crossers, or whether they are here legally, and they're getting jobs. And since we don't have a surplus of jobs, and here we have the economic man right here, since we don't have a surplus of jobs and in need of many, many employees, in fact, we have unemployment and underemployment. If these people are coming in and getting jobs, then I wonder whose jobs they could have been. I wonder who those jobs could have gone to. We don't have a surplus of jobs. We have a surplus of people.
And they're going to be underpaid, and the work they generate is going to generate more profit for the white billionaires. So this doesn't in
For the
any way
white billionaires.
change the demographics of.
Okay, so his only problem is the white billionaires. I'll back it up and hear what he has to say there. But he doesn't have a problem with non-white billionaires, just the white ones. They are the avaricious ones, because those are the ones who are just making more profit. Let's see what he's saying here.
Want to do, and they're going to be underpaid, and the work they generate is going to generate more.
Okay, they're going to be underpaid, so he's okay with that?
Profit for the white billionaires. So here's a bunch of more workers to do all of the cheap jobs that white people don't want to do, and they're going to be underpaid, and the work they generate is going to generate more profit for the white billionaires. So this doesn't in any way change the demographics of the people in power in America. All it does is give them more opportunity to make more money, as you have now cheap.
Okay, so what he's saying is it doesn't change the demographic. So his position then, as an anti-white POS, is that white people dominate everything in America for the benefit of white people. And he is using you, oh, the bricklayer right there, oh, that guy who's an accountant, I see you right there. He's using all of you and everybody like you as the avatar, irrespective of how much wealth or how poor you are. Maybe you're homeless. You to TJump, anti-white bastard, you're the avatar to white billionaires that are just avaricious and gobbling up the world for their benefit. So you can be, you can have your community white erased, and that's okay because white people are still billionaires. So you see that as anti-whites think, it will never be okay for in an anti-white's mind, because if there is a white person left with $1, then they still have wealth. They still have power. It's not going to change. The country could be 95% non-white. According to TJump, that would be just fine, because there are white billionaires out there who are just so avaricious, unlike the non-white billionaires.
Labor. So the corporate enterprises, the reason they're okay with this is because they make more money.
Yeah, the ill-gotten gain is a big part of that. But I would say that it's also political, because whites are the only conservative, Well,
before we hear Hake getting into the political side of it, all of these non-white people without papers, and even non-white people with papers coming into the country, but it's particularly those who don't have papers, who have crossed the border without an invitation. And so therefore, I mean, when somebody comes in who doesn't have an invitation, that's called an intruder when it's at your house, right? So these folks that have come in, business owners structure their businesses around the fact that these employees will have so much of their livelihood subsidized by the taxpayers. Subsidized by the taxpayers. And who are the lion's share of those taxpayers? Us. So we are subsidizing these business owners so that they can have cheaper labor. They don't pay these people what they're worth for the job, which means that white people who actually want the jobs, or non-white people who are citizens of the country that actually want the jobs, they can't get the jobs because the employer would have to pay them more, because the employer can't factor in all of the goodies from the taxpayer. And this is my opinion, as always. You'll have to check with a bunch of anti-white groups to get the facts. I'm just giving out opinions. I am opinionating.
Majority conservative population in the country among all the different ethnicities. All the rest of them, including many of those who are called white, are majority Democrat. So it's also politically motivated in addition to the ill-gotten gain that you mentioned.
Oh, definitely. But the question here is like, is Biden really trying to redistribute power and wealth away from essentially the white cultures? He's trying to demonize white culture.
Without question, when you change the electorate with an electorate that is predisposed to vote for your party, and your party advances its agenda by demonizing the white race and all of the bolsters and supports of the white race, then that is exactly what you are doing. You are rigging the game.
And he's not doing that by letting in immigrants. In fact, letting in immigrants is supporting the white culture. It's giving them more money and more power because they have cheaper labor.
Oh my God. Was I right before about this bastard? Doesn't matter. All the millions of white people, you don't matter, because there are some white billionaires out there. And if they're living good, then you need to suffer. This is the mind of an anti-white. This is how they operate. Let's hear that again.
Redistribute power and wealth away from essentially the white cultures. He's trying to demonize white.
Democrat. So it's also politically motivated in addition to the ill-gotten gain that you mentioned.
Oh, definitely. But the question here is like, is Biden really trying to redistribute power and wealth away from essentially the white cultures? He's trying to demonize white culture. And he's not doing that by letting in immigrants. In fact, letting in immigrants is supporting the white culture. It's giving them more money and more power because they have cheaper labor.
Okay, that is absolutely disgusting. What a revolting piece of shit this guy is. I bet he shits in that lazy boy. I bet he doesn't even get out of it to take a shit. He's just sitting in his shit right now, and he's going to wait until the non-white nurse comes and changes his diaper, because he's too dumb to do it himself and too lazy to get out of that damn lazy boy. What a disgusting bastard. You are strengthening white culture by massively permitting uncountable millions from the world. So according to this guy's thinking, you support white culture by, say, I don't know, if we were to move all of China here, say 1 billion Chinese or plus, and we move to the United States, would that make us more Western or less Western? Can you imagine that there are people who make arguments like this? Can you imagine what kind of a disgusting gargoyle you have to be? How much you have to absolutely hate it? I would never think about any race or people of man on planet Earth this way. I would never make any argument so disingenuous, so sophistical from start to stop. We might have to make this a two-parter, part 1 and part 2, because in 9.5 minutes, the great Fornull begins his stream, and we're all going to head over there for Fornull, and I'm going to see if you all have financially gifted anything, and see if there are any questions or comments, and maybe read some comments from here as well. I think that's as good as any. Spend maybe the last couple of minutes together, and I'll take a quick look. Looks like nothing on Entropy, and let's see, Cash App and Odyssey. Okay, nothing over there on Odyssey, nothing on Cash App. Let me see what you all are saying over here on YouTube. Great to see all of you champions here. Let me drop this, and we'll see what's happening with this. The shirt's actually purple. I don't know if it looks purple. The tie is silver. We've got to work on the software and reading the colors, and we'll get it there. Anglo-Saxon is here. Great to see you. The great Roy Danton. Reptile. Wonderful to see you, brother. What are you all saying? Azimuth Clark is here. Promethean Promulgation says over on Twitter it's using the old title. Well, that's peculiar. I'll have to look into that. Thank you, good brother. And I see Ladybug. How are you? And I see White Wolf, Bane, Morb, and Mrs. Jess Horse, Chief Moody, Foss, and John and Mary. Hello to you all. And we see White Wolf said, isn't the term Karen an anti-white slur? Precisely. So it's no shock that when an anti-white is reaching out into space for a slur, he lands upon an anti-white slur. He's certainly not going to use a slur that is for anti-whites or of various types. No, he reaches out for the white. Why? Because you can slander white people. You can defame white people. You can insult white people. All of that is not only can you, but it is desirable. It is moral in and the anti-white narrative. So good ear, good catch. Exactly. Mary is here. Remember, folks, to tag me as No White Guilt. Caleb says the black shirt, purple shirt, probably did look black when I was smaller on your screen. Black shirt and tie look sharp. Let me find the real Vincent is here. Which Vincent is that? But good to see you. Argon is here. Sid says you should consider inviting Hake on for a live stream. Also, I'd like to see you debate this anti-white TJump guy. I'd love to debate him. I would eviscerate. Look at how how he wouldn't be able to say a thing in response to me here. He would be absolutely, his guts would be all over his lazy boy. And absolutely, we've had Hake on before, and we'll have him on again. I'll bring him over to Going Free. Rory is here. Great to see you. Carlisle says Fernell is not streaming tonight. No? But I thought his link said that he was. Are you sure? Elaine says hello. And hello to you, Elaine. How are you? White Wolf says thank you for the efforts. Okay, can we find out for sure about Fernell? I thought he was streaming tonight. I'll take a quick look over here. I specifically looked that up. And let's see. No, it says he's streaming tonight. Yep, down to 5 minutes. So we will be over there. Maybe you saw his an old message about what was that? 2 weeks ago? Maybe you saw an old message where he was supposed to be streaming, but then he didn't. Roy says, it looked black for me as well, but you're looking awesome as always, dear brother. Well, thank you so very much. Elaine TJump. Can you believe this TJump guy? Roy says that he's pretty sure he rescheduled to Wednesday so you can do the roll-in. Well, I mean, I've no problem with making this a two-parter, so that we can go over to his channel and watch, and then pick it back up in a part 2. Let me read some of these while we try to find out whether or not we can continue with this, or whether or not, I don't know how much longer I can actually go, though, to be honest with you. Let me see if he sent me a message. Let me give Sean, so you all are not just left with boredom. Why don't we play a kick-ass song while I send a message? It appears that our dear brother is getting ready to roll right now. So I will take a quick look, and as I expected, and I don't see anything saying otherwise, James is saying that he's live. So that's okay. We'll come back. We'll do a part 2. It's actually good because I can't stick around much longer streaming after I've got work. I've got other stuff to do. Arden White writes, Crucible is a great book. I couldn't put it down. I read it all in a couple days, and I gave it to my sister to read too. I've recommended it to several other white positive people as well, and will continue to. Thank you. Crucible, ladies and gentlemen, that is my nonfiction book. Make sure you get a copy. You can get it at Amazon. You can get it at nowhiteguiltcollectibles.com, and if you get it from there, you get a signature with it, but you can get it over there at Amazon and have it ASAP. Yes, I know. It's crazy. I got work. Got work to do. Let's see. Anne says, never took him seriously since his dramatic, I can't. Plus his carpet is way overpriced. He made good money on young white guys looking for ethical direction in this fallen world. And she's talking, of course, about Jordan Peterson. Very well written, sister. Thank you for that. Lovely Porridge writes here, and this will be it. I think the so-called double standard can be either the strongest or weakest argument, depending on the conclusion. For conservatives, it's an attempt to laugh at how silly and hypocritical the liberals are. But it can also be the easiest way to convince vagues by appealing to their sense of fairness. That's right, Porridge. If they agree that something is immoral when done to non-whites, they cannot justify doing it to whites without sounding like a villain. Vagues often can't fully appreciate how outrageously anti-white something is until they imagine it being said or done to non-whites. It's unfortunate that would be necessary. We need to get them to a point where they don't have to imagine the reverse, but it can be a great first step, particularly if the anti-white is non-white. You can say, I would never say something that horrible about your people, so please don't be anti-white. And that is brilliantly written by our one and only lovely Porridge. Right now, folks, head on over to... Rory says, great news. Did you hear that person... Well, the countdown was over there. Did you hear that a person close to you rediscovered a missing groundhog known as Camp Hill Carl today after I prayed to St. Anthony for his discovery? That is awesome. That is really awesome. Hey, folks, we'll come back with the rest of a part 2 roll-in for this right now. There's the link for Null. Head on over there and let's go have a hell of a lot of fun. And we will roll out with this.